Welcome to the Godot BootCamp lesson on authentication error handling. When we covered authentication in previous lessons, we did not cover how to handle authentication errors. Run the game. On the login dialog, attempt to log in but enter an incorrect password. As you can see, we're stuck on the connecting screen. Stop the game and open Visual Studio Code. Navigate to the network.cs file. Scroll down to the Authenticate Universal method. In the failure callback lambda, in the output log statement, log the JSON error value. Save the file and return to the Godot editor. Run the game. On the login dialog, attempt to log in but enter an incorrect password. Notice in the output window, we can see the error JSON data that is returned. The property to note is called status message. Stop the game and open Visual Studio Code. At the top of the network.cs file, declare a using statement for brainCloud.jsonfx.json. Then, in the authentication request failed delegate, add a parameter named error message of type string. We'll also set up our code to handle errors for non-authentication requests. In the brainCloud logout failed delegate, add a parameter named error message of type string. Declare a private templated delegate called error delegate. This is going to be used to handle all the different error delegates that we'll be implementing in future bootcamp lessons. Scroll down and declare a public method called resetProfileID. This method will erase the profile ID that has been saved to the user's device. Scroll down to the bottom. Declare a private method called extractStatusMessage. This method will parse the error JSON string that is returned on a response error and extract the status message and return it. Above the output log method, declare a private method called handleRequestError. This method will take in an error message and the templated error delegate as the parameters. In the body of the method, log the error message, and if the delegate is not null, it will be invoked. Above this method, declare a private method called handleAuthenticationError. This method will take in the reason code, JSON error, and the authentication request failed delegate as the parameters. In the body of the method, format an error message with the extracted status message, then invoke the handleRequestError method, pass in the error message and the error delegate as the arguments. Scroll up and find the logout method. In the if statement that checks to see if the user is not authenticated. Delete the existing output log and instead format an error message, then delete the logout failed delegate invocation. In its place, invoke the handleRequestError method, pass in the error message and the error delegate as the arguments. Then, in the failure callback lambda, delete the output log and instead format an error message that includes the extracted status message. Delete the logout failed delegate invocation. In its place, invoke the handleRequestError method, pass in the error message and the error delegate as the arguments. In the reconnect method, delete the body of the failure callback lambda. Instead, invoke the handleAuthenticationError method, pass in the reason code, the JSON error, and the authentication request failed delegate as the arguments. In the authenticate anonymous method below, delete the body of the failure callback lambda, and instead invoke the handleAuthenticationError method, pass in the reason code, the JSON error, and the authentication request failed delegate as the arguments. In the authenticate universal method below, delete the body of the failure callback lambda, and instead invoke the handleAuthenticationError method, pass in the reason code, the JSON error, and the authentication request failed delegate as the arguments. Save the file and then navigate to the game.cs file. Scroll down and find the onAuthenticationRequest completed method. Below it, declare a public method named onAuthenticationRequest failed. In the body, check to see if the game state is authenticating. If it is, set the game state to gameplay, then hide the connecting dialog, and show the error dialog. Pass in the error message parameter as the argument. We'll also invoke the network's resetStoredProfileID method. This is an important step since it will prevent a reconnect request on the next authentication attempt. In the handleAuthentication method, we need to supply the onAuthenticationRequestFailed method as an argument to the network's reconnect request and to the dialog manager's showUniversalLogin dialog method. Save the file and then compile the code. If the code compiled successfully, open the Godot editor. Run the game. On the login dialog, attempt to log in but enter an incorrect password. Notice that the error dialog is displayed with a status message. Close the dialog and then close the game. There's another type of error I'd like to show you how to handle in your gamer app. Open your web browser and navigate to the brainCloud design portal. From the dashboard, click Design, then Core App Info, followed by Platforms. From this screen, you can set the platforms that your gamer app supports. Any attempt to authenticate with brainCloud from an unsupported platform will result in an error, but that's not the error that we'll be adding support for. Notice the column that says minimum version. This allows you to set a minimum version of your gamer app that is supported. Suppose your app was on 1.5.0 and you implemented a major new feature in 2.0.0 and you wanted everyone to use it. You could set the minimum version here to 2.0.0, and everyone on a previous version of your game or app would then need to update their game in order to authenticate with brainCloud. Scroll down and click the Windows minimum version. Click the button with the 3 dots, then click View Edit. Click Edit and then set the minimum version to 1.0.1. Below that, set an upgrade message. This is a custom error message that will be displayed to the user to encourage them to upgrade to the desired version of the game. Click Save. Click the macOS minimum version. Click the button with the 3 dots, then click View Edit. Click Edit and then set the minimum version to 1.0.1. Then set the same upgrade message as we did for Windows. Click Save. Click the Linux minimum version. Click the button with the 3 dots, then click View Edit. Click Edit and then set the minimum version to 1.0.1. Then set the same upgrade message as we did for macOS and Windows. Click Save. Return to the Godot editor. Run the game. On the Login dialog, enter a valid username and password. Notice that we get an error message, but it's not the upgrade error message that we set. Our code isn't set up to parse that value yet. Open Visual Studio Code and navigate to the network.cs file. Scroll to the bottom. Above the output log method, declare a private method called handleAppVersionError. This method will parse the error JSON string that is returned on an authentication error and extract the upgrade app ID message and store it as a local string. Then invoke the handleRequestError method, passing in the upgrade app ID message string and the error delegate as the arguments. In the handleAuthenticationError method, check to see if the reason code parameter is equal to the game version not supported reason code. If it is, invoke the handleAppVersionError method, passing in the JSON error and the authentication request failed delegate as the arguments. Add the method's existing code in an else statement. Save the file and then compile the code. If the compilation was successful, open the Godot editor. Run the game. On the Login dialog, enter a valid username and password. Notice that the error dialog's error message displays the app upgrade message that we set in the design portal. Stop the game. Return to Visual Studio Code and navigate to the constants.cs file. Change the brainCloud app to version 1.0.1. Save the file and return to the Godot editor. Run the game. On the Login dialog, enter a valid username and password. Notice that the app successfully authenticated. You may recall in previous lessons when viewing other authentication requests in the API Explorer that there was a section for error handling. In the Godot example game, we are only handling the game version not supported reason code, and the rest of the errors we are simply displaying the brainCloud status message that is returned. But as you can see, there are additional types of authentication errors that can be returned, and perhaps your game or app will want to display a more meaningful error message to the user. To handle any of these errors in your game or app, check the reason code parameter in the handleAuthenticationError method, just like we did with the game version not supported reason code. Email authentication is the next lesson in the Godot BootCamp.